dancing? Is that what you just did?
It was something. Wasn't quite
It was
dancing.
definitely something. It was definitely something. And now that I think about it.
It wasn't quite wedding dancing.
Yeah, I mean, like, because I was just going to say, like, I was at your wedding.
Yeah, liquid courage.
And I was on the dance floor with you and the lovely Chapin. Chapin is a rock star on the dance floor.
Yeah, there are a lot of things she's a rock star at. Yeah.
No question about it. You outkicked your coverage, my friend. I don't remember seeing you dancing so much as rhythmically moving in place. Even then, even when it was your wedding night, like I'm just trying to think of like my memories of that night. And to be clear, they were fuzzy.
Yes.
They were fuzzy.
Good wedding.
I mean, I enjoyed myself at your wedding. I had a great time at your wedding. But yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, I'm thinking about my memories. I see Chapin dancing. I see Chapin dancing with her sister. Chapin was dancing with Beth and Stephania, with my wife. There was, like, lots of, not your best man, Sam, who officiated the wedding.
Yeah.
Sam was out there. Sam was a rock star on the dance floor.
I have to return the favor. I'm officiating his wedding now.
Are you really?
I am, yeah.
You want hints from me? Because I've officiated weddings before.
I've heard you've done quite well in that
I'm
role.
pretty good
Yes.
at it, believe it or not. I'm pretty good.
For those that
Sam is also very good, though. I mean, if
he's
you just
terrific.
followed
Yeah.
Sam's model.
Right. I got to spice it up a little bit. I can't just repeat my wedding at his wedding.
That's true.
For those
Although
of you
that would be
that
pretty
may have-
funny if
that
you
would
just
be
got
pretty
up and literally just did your wedding ceremony for Sam.
That would
like
be pretty
if it's just
good.
all about you and Chapin.
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
I actually think that would be fun.
We made it to week 2 of the Fantasy
Oh, my
Focus
goodness.
Football Podcast. Field and Matthew hanging out with you today. And all last week we did Double Trouble. Monday we did some news, and then we got into 4 sets of Double Trouble, which means that we have already covered 1/4 of the NFL. We're back with our 2 more teams today. We'll talk about both the Washington football team and the New York Giants. But you know what else is back, Matthew?
What's that?
Daniel is back. Hello,
That's
Daniel.
right. Secret
Hey, guys.
squirrel.
What's going on?
Does this mean you have power, Daniel? What does this mean?
I do not have power. So there was a tree in front of my house, and there was a power line that the tree took down, and that was like literally draped across my road, across the front of my driveway, so we couldn't get out because we'd have to drive over top of a power line and then underneath 2 other ones that were hanging down. And so
We couldn't get out.
yeah.
Your dog?
Yes, absolutely.
Daniel and his dog.
Jobin, my cat Jobin, my dog Dexter, and I could not get out.
Daniel,
Got it.
this is quarantine multiplied by quarantines. What happened?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. And so we were just like stuck there, Jobin and Dexter and I just chilling.
Did you have food?
Had food.
Did you call Kyle for advice on how to survive in a bunker?
I thought about it. However, my bunker phone was not working because I didn't have power or internet. Field.
He'll try to catch you in a trap, and
Yeah.
you caught it, Secret Squirrel.
Yeah.
Well done
Nice
by
job, my friend.
It's
So
great to have you.
I still don't have power. I still don't have internet. Both of those were actually just pulled off the house. Like when the tree fell, like everything was removed, like
Right.
detached from the home. So
Right.
they still have to come back and like set up everything. But I was able to leave the house. I'm able to be here now. So like that's I'm pretty pleased with that.
You've kept great perspective, Daniel. It's certainly been a long week for a lot of people without power in the state of Connecticut. But we're glad to have you back. Glad to have your power trending towards being back soon.
And everybody that came to work in my neighborhood, they all came from New Hampshire. So like I realized that none of them probably listen to this podcast. But if you do, thank you for working on our road and
we're
getting
big in
all
New
the
Hampshire.
things around. I mean,
You never
huge in
know.
New
We're
Hampshire.
huge in the Granite State. All right, let's talk about football, Matthew. And I think we'll weave into this Washington football team conversation some of your just general feelings about the team, about the organization, which has been through a lot this offseason. On Friday, though, one of the scary situations, and just a sad and deplorable situation, to be candid, involving Darius Guice, who was a promising prospect at running back, 30-year player who's been limited because of injuries, obviously. But on Friday, news broke that Darius Guice had been arrested on accusations, and he was actually charged with domestic violence there are a few
Very
other
serious
details.
allegations.
Very serious
by the way.
allegations.
If you read the story about exactly what went down, very
Correct.
serious.
And it didn't take long for the team to actually release Darius Guice. Matter of fact, it was later on Friday afternoon. Darius Guice is gone. He's cleared waivers. He's a free agent. I don't know if he'll play football ever again. I'm not sure it really matters right now. But with Darius Guice gone, Matthew, how are you handling, and to be clear, it's a fantasy.
I just want to say something real quick before we move off of that topic, just very quickly, which is that the Washington franchise has, deservedly so, gotten a lot of criticism for how they've reacted to various things that have happened within their organization.
Mm-hmm.
They have rightfully gotten a lot of criticism. Big story in the Washington Post, obviously. I will like to say that I was happy to see the franchise act swiftly and decisively in light of this. arrest. And so, look, Ron Rivera has a tremendous job in front of him, a huge job in terms of trying to change the culture and direction of that franchise, both on the field and off the field. And I thought that was a step in the right direction. It doesn't get rid of all the past transgressions, of which there are many, but I just thought it signaled at least a new tone, because the previous regime would not have handled this the way that they did.
You can talk the talk, but you have to walk the walk. Unfortunately, walking the walk means you're dealing with really critical and serious and grave and sad situations like the Darius Guice one was. So, again, understanding that this is just fantasy football and what Darius Guice did is real life, and we hope that the alleged victim is able to bounce back and enjoy a life that might mirror what it was prior to this most recent incident. Hopefully one of great value and happiness. But
Field, our job is to analyze fantasy football situations. Right. And with the release of a running back that was slated for a large role on Washington's football team, there is a fantasy football impact to that move. You and I should discuss that. And
let's get into these names then,
right?
Because there are a lot of running backs on this roster. Prior to Darius Guice's situation coming to pass, there were a lot of running backs on the roster already. Adrian Peterson, Peyton Barber, Antonio Gibson, Bryce Love. Those are just four.
J.D. McKissick,
sort of a wide receiver, running back hybrid. That's right. Actually, and also most recently a Lion. So 5 players right there, Matthew, that might have an ounce of fantasy relevance. But how are you valuing this backfield? Is there a single player that you're even bothering drafting out of this backfield? And if so, who and where?
Okay. So, yes, I think there's potential value here. My guess, and I want to underline the word guess, because I don't think even the Washington coaches know. I think they're going to, they're going to see what they have. I will tell you that I spoke to Ron Rivera at the Combine. I did an interview with him that I believe aired as part of the fantasy show, one of the off-season episodes that we did for the fantasy show on ESPN Plus. I'm a company man, right? And at any rate, I spoke. One of the things I said to Ron was, I said to Coach Rivera, I said, listen, when you were in Carolina, before you got Christian McCaffrey, who's obviously a transcendent player, but prior to Christian McCaffrey coming to Carolina, you used a lot of running back by committee. If you remember, the DeAngelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart days. And I said, is that something you envision in Washington, or would you prefer one guy emerge? And he said, again, this is in February, before they've drafted Antonio Gibson. But he said, no, I have found that to be effective. And, right now, we'll see when everyone gets to the field. But right now, my expectation is, I'm paraphrasing, he said, that Adrian Peterson, Darius Guice, and Bryce Love would all have roles in this offense. Those were the 3 names he brought up to me. Now, Barber, McKissick, and Gibson have been added to the roster since that conversation. But I think that point still remains. Washington has holes on offense, and they need to, so they're going to try to different ways. The one person I would be drafting as of right now is Antonio Gibson, because I think his upside is the biggest. Right?
For those that are unfamiliar with Antonio Gibson, by the way, a player that in 2019, his final college season, he went to Memphis. Kind of actually reminds people in some ways of Tony Pollard, back-to-back players who got drafted out of Memphis, who were a little bit of do-everything players during their time with the Tigers. 6 feet tall, 228 pounds, with sub-4.4 speed, a crazy athletic profile for Antonio Gibson is the big takeaway there. We had to make a decision, I believe, early on in the offseason about whether he would be deemed a running back or a wide receiver for fantasy football. We are going the running back route, unless I believe
at the moment he qualifies at running back. Now, I've spoken to some sources around Washington. This has also been reported, so I don't think I'm breaking any news here. But Antonio Gibson is training with both the wide receiver group and the running back group. So they are, what happens is when a player comes and they basically go with their position group. He's been in both position group meetings. He's learning, packages and plays from both different positions. Would that
ever be considered a negative? Like as a rookie doing a shortened off season where it's like, why don't you just let me focus on the one thing you want me to do well? And I realize there's a positive of I want to be well-rounded and you can kind of fit both schemes and things like that. But do you know what I mean? Is there any thought to that where it's maybe it would be better just to put them in one room and let them learn?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that in an ideal world, Washington wouldn't have to do.
Right.
But Washington, this is a team that it's one of the worst rosters in the NFL. They are devoid of playmakers. And when Antonio Gibson was drafted, and you hear the comments from both Ron Rivera and offense coordinator Scott Turner, both compared him favorably to Christian McCaffrey. Now, we're not saying Antonio Gibson is Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, we're not, okay? Christian McCaffrey is a very special player. But just the idea that Christian McCaffrey's versatility is one of the things they were able to utilize in Carolina, and they said that they felt Gibson had that same versatility, that he is a talented pass catcher, he's a talented runner. They can use him behind the between the tackles. I just want to our friend Mike Renner on Twitter posted this, and I thought this was just an interesting tweet. Antonio Gibson broke 33 tackles on 77 career touches at Memphis and ran a 4.39 at the Combine. He could legitimately be the best running back in this class, but we just didn't get to see him. Now, again, it's very small sample size. I mean, again, 77 touches, but
that's crazy.
But broke 33 tackles on 77 career touches. I mean, look, this is a kid field that at Memphis was where's my 15.5 yards per touch.
Super athletic. I mean, obviously, it's inferior competition. They were just steamrolling teams left and right, so a ton of big plays there. Same thing with Tony Pollard, who was averaging like 7 yards a carry. So, but let's
But I guess my point is just to bring it back here. Sorry.
Yeah.
But to bring it back, and Haley, I think that counts as an interruption of me, not an interruption of him, because I was talking first. I'm just saying for the counter.
Duly noted.
Thank you. So what I was going to say here, though, Field, is that in terms of where am I drafting or who am I like. If one of these guys is going to emerge as special, it's going to be Antonio Gibson, because if he can handle all of that, he may not be the running back that gets the most carries, but in terms of the guys that qualify at running back on Washington's roster, the guy that touches the ball the most, it might be Antonio Gibson, because I expect the Washington team to be very pass happy this year, because I think their defense, at least in the secondary, is going to struggle somewhat this year.
I'll accept everything you're saying. Okay. I will throw a bit of cold water on it, because I think if the preference of mine was to target a player or just bypass on this backfield entirely, my preference is probably to just bypass this backfield entirely, right? So Adrian Peterson, he is what he is. He's not the kind of player that you're bothering targeting right now in fantasy football. We talked about this last week. You don't play to finish in third or fourth place. You don't play to have nice weeks. You play to win the entire league. Adrian Peterson's upside might be 1,000 rushing yards, Matthew, but it also might be like 12 catches for the entire season, and it might be 1,000 rushing yards with 3 touchdowns and 3 games where he rushes for 450 of those rushing yards. Legend, first ballot Hall of Famer, fantasy Hall of Famer, that's for sure. And then to your point, so Antonio Gibson, it could be him. But if he's cross-training right now, to Daniel's point, what if J.D. McKissic, who has already made a career out of cross-training, is just a few steps ahead of him? Right. Or what if Bryce Love, who there's been some buzz about, what if he, a guy who was
healthy? That's the only question with Bryce Love.
For those who don't remember him, he was a Stanford standout. He tore his ACL late in his career, took a redshirt year this past season. Like, what if he's the best pure runner? I just think that you're talking about 5 names, 5, in a team that you just conceded yourself is completely devoid of playmakers. Yep. The offensive line is fine. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's fine.
It'll be fine.
I just wonder if maybe this is a backfield that I just personally end up staying away from going into the season. And I get what you're saying. You're not overvaluing Antonio Gibson. You're just saying if you're going to target one of them, it will be Antonio Gibson. I'm just lower in my rankings with him than you are.
But here's a question for you. None of these guys, in terms of ADP, or if you're in a salary cap league, is going to cost a ton of capital. Why not take a flyer on the chance that one of them, like Antonio Gibson, emerges? Or, by the way, if you're in a deeper league, I have no problem with a late-round flyer on Bryce Love. I have Bryce Love in a number of dynasty leagues. I'm telling you that at the Combine, every Washington coach and front office person I talked to all independently brought up Bryce Love.
So,
I mean, like, again, he needs to be healthy.
Here's my point, though. So we're talking. So like if we're talking late round flyer,
so it's a flyer.
I get it, but like let's say it's a late round flyer. There are. Would you consider the last 4 rounds late rounds? What would you consider last 5? Sure. So let's say it's 4 rounds. So if it's 10 team league, that's 40 late round flyers, right? Yeah. And we're on our 9th team for the double trouble, and we've probably talked about what 15, 20 late round flyers.
That many, but I understand your point.
I mean, so my point is that like yes, it's a late round flyer. It's costing you nothing, but we could juxtapose this with like. Jerry Jeudy's a late-round flyer right now, right? Justin Jefferson, just running backs alone. So that's where I'm having a harder time deciphering the value, I think, compared to you. But I get your point. I don't want to try to create the perception that you're all in on Antonio Gibson. It's more just that you have more confidence than I do.
I'm very excited about him in Dynasty. The one thing I would just say just about general draft philosophy there is that I would rather take a late round flyer on a running back versus a wide receiver because I think the player pool is much deeper in wide receiver, and I can find those guys. And it just sort of goes to philosophy. I guess my argument there with Washington, and there's a couple of backfields like that, like, the Tampa Bay is another one, right, where we don't know who's going to be the guy. So why not? But so there's a chance. Like if there's late round flyer types like you mentioned, Tony Pollard or Alexander Madison, of guys that Anthony McFarland we like. They're guys that if something were to happen to the starter in front of them, we think they would be very good. But there's a potentially clear path for Antonio Gibson to be the starting running back of Washington, right? Or Bryce. I don't think so on Gibson. I don't think he's gonna be the starting running back. I don't think he gets starting running back usage.
I agree with that.
Peterson gets hurt. Only if he gets hurt. First game of the season, first carry of the game goes to Adrian Peterson. I'm with you. I'm just saying over the course of a 16-game season, here's hoping we have a 16-game season.
I know, yeah.
Anyway.
You're telling me.
Let's
spin it forward then.
We don't want to belabor it. But
no. It's okay. You can be a homer with this next guy because he's worth the homer hype.
Right.
His name is Terry McLaurin. And last year, he took the NFL by storm in his first 5 games, had 5 touchdowns right out of the gate. He was unbelievable. Quickly shed that third-round rookie label, which is not much like... That's not a pejorative statement. Third-round rookie, great. You're one of the top 100 players in college football that past year.
Right.
He should have been drafted in the first round, what it comes down to. Terry McLaurin last season was wide receiver 29, 13.71 points per game, which sounds a little bit lower than you might expect because he was so effective last season. But remember, in the middle of the year, kind of cratered, couldn't find the end zone. Quarterback play really bothered him.
And don't forget, Jay Gruden was fired 5 games in last year. And then they went completely opposite. They were like, we're going to run the ball. Yeah. Washington became a very crazy heavy run-first offense once Jay Gruden was fired.
And you just made the assertion a little while ago on the show that you believe Washington's going to be very pass-heavy this season. I would think that's the reason why you now have Terry McLaurin ranked as wide receiver 18. I've got him at 24, so there's a 6-slot difference there. I think the question for me would probably be 2 things. Would be 1, quarterback play. And again, you do not need a great quarterback to be a great fantasy football wide receiver. There are a lot of testaments to that, but just it can't hurt. Second of all would just be the volume because he was 40th in targets total last year. He had 92 targets, which we've got so many players that are sailing past 100 targets this year, but you are making the assertion that they're going to be throwing it all over the yard this season.
Well, you think about what they did in Carolina. So you think about what Scott Turner, son of Norv, did in Carolina last year. They were second in pass attempts in the NFL last year. Now, some of that obviously was due to the fact that their defense was brutal.
Right.
They got into a lot of the shootouts here. But again, Washington is going to have – and I actually think Washington's defense will be decent this year. But they're going to have to create offense. They don't have a lot of playmakers. They do have one playmaker in Terry McLaurin. And I will tell you that the comp that I got, again – at the combine was DJ Moore. And I'm not saying that they're different players, but just like they view him as the DJ Moore of Scott Turner's offense.
Not that crazy. He's really talented, super talented.
DJ Moore is really talented. Terry McLaurin is really talented as well. Think about this last year. I mean, last year in an offense that was completely broken, that went from pass happy Jay Gruden to very run heavy after Gruden was fired, right? He still averaged over 6 targets a game. He was like 6.5 targets a game, and that was in McLaurin in the 7 Dwayne Haskins starts. Again, the offensive line was awful. Haskins looked lost out there like a deer in headlights because of offensive line play. I am actually, and again, this is somewhere where I'll be accused of a homer. I'm a Dwayne Haskins believer. I am not ready to throw in the towel on a guy that threw 50 touchdowns at Ohio State because he went into a dysfunctional franchise with 2 different with a bad offensive line, 2 different coaches, and no receiving talent other than a 3rd-round rookie. So anyway, and I will tell you that I talked to a lot of people from Washington at the Combine. They do believe in Dwayne Haskins. Like you're at the Combine too, you'll talk to your sources, and you'll talk to teams, and they'll be like, hey, what do you think? And we're like, he ain't the guy, man. We got to say the right things to the press, but he ain't the guy. Like, I will just tell you, off the record, over beers, to a person, they believe in Dwayne Haskins in Washington.
Okay, good. But I think with McLaurin, I know 18 to 24 feels like a semi-sizable gap.
He's going to get a massive
target. What it comes to
share.
is that you have a little bit more belief in the target share, a little bit more belief in the quarterback. Just in that range, just go check the players that are in between where Matthew has him and where I have him. Like, I just might believe a little bit more in guys who have a higher upside based off of the touchdown potential or maybe the quarterback play. We're actually not that far off. All right, Matthew, it's your team. It's your beloved team.
But we both agree this. If you leave your draft and Terry McLaurin is your second wide receiver, you're in good shape.
Totally agree. Totally agree that yes, I am all in on the idea of him being a very serviceable, not wide receiver 2 as in like necessarily a top 10 to 20 wide receiver. I'm just saying, like, if he's your number 2 wide receiver, we're in. All right, so you love this team, Matthew. You follow them religiously. You talked a little bit about Dwayne Haskins. But just for the sake of draft investment, is there anybody else on this Washington roster that you are saying, you know what, I'm making a pick and this player is going to be on my roster?
There's 2 guys that I think are sort of like draft pick. I wouldn't say unless I'm in a deep league.
Okay.
But I do think they're worth putting on people's radars real quick.
Got it. Yep.
One is Steven Sims, right? Steve Sims and this was one of my bold calls on Fantasy Football Now and made me look really good there. Last 3 games of 2019, he was the 7th best wide receiver in fantasy. Like, I mean, again, it's small sample size, but again, Haskins was able to get him the ball
really fast.
16 for 194 touchdowns. They didn't really add much to that receiver core, but I think he's an interesting player, as is Antonio Gandy Golden. And I remember Field seeing you tweet on draft day when Washington took AGG. I don't know if anyone else is calling him that, but I'm going to call him
You are, yeah.
AGG. I remember you being very excited about that and feeling like that Washington got a steal and that in any other year where, because it was like the craziest. In any other year, he would have gone much, much earlier.
Yeah, he's an athletic freak. He's massive. He's like 6'4". Hugh Freeze, longtime college football coach, coached amongst other players. DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Laquan Treadwell, Ole Miss. I believe he believes that AGG is the best wide receiver prospect coming out of college that he coached. Now, take that for what it's worth. I mean, he was his most recent coach, and maybe that's trying to build the program at Liberty, etc. But still, he's a huge fan of what Antonio Gandy Golden represents for this, I guess really for the Liberty program, but also what it could mean for Washington going forward.
There is a massive opportunity to be the number 2 wide receiver opposite Terry McLaurin.
Yes.
And maybe it's Sims and maybe it's Gandy Golden. Maybe it's Antonio Gibson out of the backfield and so in terms of who gets the most pass receptions after McLaurin. But again, I don't think this team is going to have to throw, and they're going to have to be creative. They're not going to be able to just like hat on a hat beat people. Like, they're going to have to be creative. They're going to have to scheme their way to offensive relevancy, and I think they're going to do that. So I do think there's some value here in a team that's often forgotten.
So again, you get this big old bucket of late round flyers or even post late round flyers. Those are 2 names to store away in there. So during this quarantine, we've had a lot of time to consume a lot of content, and not a good piece, and definitely not a great piece. The best piece that I saw on ESPN throughout quarantine, the best, was done by our very own Stephania Bell. And although this player may not have any fantasy relevance this year, you need to take the time, if you haven't already, to find her E60 feature on Alex Smith. And here's a little sample of that piece.
From what I understand, this has never happened to a professional athlete. For me, it's the challenge of that. My future, nobody knows it.
He is hurt. He's hurt bad, man. Look at him. I think he realizes that this is a serious injury.
I've lived a great life. I've played a lot of football.
With the first selection in the 2005 NFL Draft.
All of a sudden, to go from, and they're going to fix this, to maybe cutting off your legs, the best thing. Push. Football might not be out of the question.
Do you believe it?
Can I push it that far?
The play of dreams!
Can I go play quarterback again?
Stephania Bell got so many kudos, and all of them well-deserved on Twitter for the 18 months she put in on Project 11. First off, Stephania, let me just say congratulations on an amazing piece there on E60 and the work you did with the Smith family.
Thank you, Matthew. I really have to credit them. They made the job easy in that they gave us incredible access. They were so open about sharing what was an incredibly difficult story. And I think the reason it got so much reaction, one of the reasons was, number one, the injury was so dramatic. But number two, people just could not believe the perseverance and the willpower of Alex Smith and his ability to come as far as he had. And even since that piece aired, he's come even further.
So, hey, Stephania, I don't know if you saw this, but head coach Ron Rivera came out today and said that if Alex Smith is clear, he will be part of the competition for the starting quarterback job in Washington. Just curious, is Alex Smith a fantasy asset we should be considering this year? Do you think we see him on the field? Because we know what he can do when he's on the field.
You know, I don't know for fantasy purposes that I would invest yet. I mean, I don't think I would draft him, but I will tell you this, I took him with my very last round pick in the Scott Fish Bowl because I believe there is a chance, and that chance depends on whether he gets the opportunity to prove that he can do what he needs to do at some point during training camp. You know, obviously this is an injury people haven't seen before, and everybody's a little bit apprehensive. Can he really do this? But Alex is such a logical person, and based on what he's seen that he can accomplish, everything he's done so far have been things that people didn't think he'd be able to do, and he's just wired that way, that you give him a challenge like that and he wants to prove you wrong. So one of the things he needs to find out is, can he do the football maneuvering when he's in 7-on-7s or 11-on-11s? Can he get out of the way? Can he do what's necessary to actually play the game? His mind is there. He had the playbook down first. Obviously, he's got the most experience. I think he's looked fantastic in drill work, but until you get a defense coming at you, some of those things remain to be seen.
Well, Stephania, we are all fans of Alex Smith, an easy guy to root for, and thank you as always for your insight. We'll be back to talk to you in just a few moments about a particular Giants offensive player. Thanks, Stephania. All right, and now
Sounds
a
good.
word. Now a word from our friends at Geico. Did you know that right now, Geico is offering an extra 15% credit on car, motorcycle, and RV policies? That's 15% on top of the money Geico could already save you. So what are you waiting for? Your dog to make you breakfast in bed with Belgian waffles and a fresh fruit compote? As nice as that sounds, it does sound nice, that's probably never going to happen. But at least there's never been a better time to switch to Geico. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th. Visit geico.com to learn more.
Field, now more than ever, we have to look out for each other and count on each other. Marathon wants you to know that you can count on them for high-quality, top-tier gas. Marathon gasolines are formulated with STP additives that keep your vehicle running at peak performance by optimizing fuel economy, removing those ugly deposit builds-up, and by reducing emissions. And right now, that's right, you can get 5 cents off every gallon every day with Make It Count rewards from Marathon. Plus, you can earn points for additional savings on fuel, airfare, hotels, and more. This is definitely a deal you can count on. It's quick and easy to join. Just download the free Make It Count app or go to makeitcount.com/radio. Start saving today. This offer valid only at participating Marathon stations. Remember, wherever you need to go, be safe. The people at Marathon are behind you all the way.
All righty. Let's move forward if I could just figure out a way to scan through my document here as
It's time for the New York Football Giants.
You are one step ahead of me. You're like a carpenter. He builds steps. Get it? New York Football Giants. They are a team that's also in the division that you follow most closely, the NFC East. And
That was a bad joke, Phil. Can I just say that? That just wasn't a good joke.
I thought that was, didn't Michael Scott say that? You're like a carpenter. I thought it was a Michael Scott reference.
Is that a Michael Scott reference?
I think
If
so.
it is, then I'm a bad
understand?
offense
You know what?
fan.
Yeah. It was, his delivery was
It
better.
was funny when he said it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's nice of you guys to
that's-
say.
When
That's all it is.
Steve Carell does it, it's funny.
Yeah.
If
It's
you
Michael
could get
Scott.
a Steve Carell for the
It's
show,
Michael
that would be
Scott.
great.
Steve Carell is his alter ego.
If we
Michael
have
Scott.
one more like bombed joke, we might need to start a failed field jokes column.
that
for
works.
a ticker
That would
for
be
the- you know what I mean?
good.
Yeah.
Into that.
It's weird because Field more than anyone I know has dad jokes.
Yes.
Yet not actually a dad.
No, was very young and
Cisco
hip.
Golden boy, I suppose.
I was gonna say, don't take away from
him
Cisco.
a dad with your dog, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've got some dad joke in me. I'm
definitely-
just workshopping for when my opportunity comes to be an actual dad.
you are
Love it.
a walking dad joke. And
Okay.
I say that with love. All right,
So,
my friend. What do we
Let's
got?
talk about the Giants. And Matthew, I think it's important that when we're talking about star players, and Saquon Barkley is a star player, that we don't just sit here and tell you, Saquon Barkley is awesome. Here are 5 stats to tell you how awesome he is. And I get it. He disappointed last season. He was injured, but he disappointed relative to ADP. But here's where I think the conversation is interesting with Saquon Barkley. It is accepted this year that 101 is in the very first pick in any draft, basically in any format, is Christian McCaffrey. Agreed, correct?
Yeah, two quarterback league.
Oh, my God.
Two quarterback league, you could make an argument for Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. I've seen that happen.
Basically in any league.
Yes,
okay.
It's CMC.
It's Christian McCaffrey. But this year, so really the interesting debate in fantasy football at the very top of boards is, who do you take at number 2? Now, you and I have Saquon Barkley both ranked at number 2 amongst our running backs and number 2 overall. Remember last year he finished RB7 on a points per game basis at nearly 19. Let me just imagine that. Let's say that you play in 5 leagues, Matthew, and in each of those 5 leagues, you had the number 2 pick.
Right.
Christian McCaffrey goes number 1 at all 5 of them. You have Saquon number 2. I have a number 2. Of those 5 opportunities to draft second overall, are you using all 5 picks on Saquon Barkley, or is the margin between he and Ezekiel Elliott or whoever it is, Dalvin Cook at number 3 for you, so slim that you're saying, maybe 3 of them I'll take Saquon, maybe the other 2 I'll take Zeke. Does that make sense? Is it a
I don't know that it would
firm
go all 5? Yeah,
lock it in number 2?
I think if you took, there's a handful of players that if you took them at number 2, I would not look at you weird. So he's right? If I'm in a draft and someone takes Saquon at 2, or Dalvin, or Zeke, or Michael Thomas, or even Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I would not look at you weird.
Spicy.
No, listen, that's not where I would do it. But I'm just saying I wouldn't be like, what is this person doing? This person doesn't know what they're doing. You know what I mean? That would not be my reaction. I think those are all, you can make a legitimate case for all of them at 2. Again, I wouldn't go there, but listen, our colleague Lou Riddick literally on Twitter yesterday said, I will take Clyde Edwards-Helaire at number 1 over Chris McCaffrey in fantasy drafts. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so Lou's as smart a football guy as we have at ESPN, right? So, Lou also spent a lot of time with Andy Reid. He drinks a little bit of the Kool-Aid, right? But we love Lou, and Lou knows his football. So, my point is, and I've seen CEH go at number 1 overall. So, yes, it is very thin there between all of those guys. If Dalvin Cook, if we get news today, okay, you or Shefty or Mort or somebody reports Dalvin Cook has signed an extension, blah, 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 with the Minnesota Vikings, I think you could make a very strong argument for Dalvin Cook at 2 over Saquon Barkley.
Okay, so yeah, so I think that's the important part of this conversation here, though. Again, because I do think, every year you get people asking you millions of questions, but a lot of the questions are, if you had the number 1 overall pick, who you're taking. This year, that question's off the board. So a lot of questions this year are going to be, who do you have number 2? So the case for Saquon number 2 that I think, and we don't need to belabor the case for Saquon Barkley. They get it for the most part. He had 91 catches as a rookie. He's an incredible pass catcher. He's the best big play runner in the NFL. He's got 9 carries of 50-plus yards during his 2 seasons in the NFL. There are running backs who are really, really good. Like Le'Veon Bell hasn't had a 20-yard carry or 30-yard carry, one of those 2, in 4 years. It's some ridiculous length and ridiculous qualifier there. Saquon Barkley is the most explosive running back in football. He's an outstanding pass-catching running back. He is the clear-cut guy for the New York Giants. They're going to run their offense through him. And there is potential for this team to either A, be pretty good offensively and score a lot of touchdowns, or B, be really bad defensively and have to score a bunch of points and throw a bunch and throw it to Saquon Barkley. So to me, it's a pretty obvious case for him at number 2. I'm with you that if I had the opportunity to draft number 2 5 times, I might use 1 or 2 of those shares on Ezekiel Elliott or Dalvin Cook. But Saquon Barkley feels like if this is not too much of speaking out of both sides of my mouth, a pretty clear-cut number 2, but I'm open to other conversations.
Yeah, look, guys, one of the best players in the NFL, just from a pure skill standpoint, and I agree, I think it's going to be a pretty good offense, and I think it's going to be a pretty bad defense. And that's one of the reasons, Field, that not only do I have Barkley at 2, but I have Daniel Jones as a top 12 quarterback this year. And when we did our sleepers, busts, and breakout column on ESPN, and you can check that out on ESPN.com, I had Daniel Jones listed as my breakout. The question was posed to us as what player do you think makes a jump into the upper echelon, makes a significant jump? I don't know, 10 spots or something like that. Or
I believe it's a player that has never finished, has a chance, either never has finished as a top 10 player's position before, or has a chance to be a top 5 finisher. Great job by us to know the exact qualifications, but that's sort of less important to me. The more important to me is what you think about him as a breakout candidate.
Yes, I think he is a breakout candidate. So think about last year. right?
Okay.
So first off, more mobile than I think he gets credit for, 20 or more rushing yards in 7 of his 12 starts. He had 4 different games with 28 or more fantasy points. That was tied for third among all quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, so he has that big playability. And again, he only played 12 games. He only started 12 games, I believe. Week 8 on, second half of last year, from week 8 through 17, second half of last year, he was the 5th best quarterback in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And during that entire stretch, he played with Saquon Barkley, Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Evan Engram, Darius Slayton on the field for 0, count them, 0 snaps. He never had all of his weapons on the field for even one play.
Yeah.
Evan Engram,
Wild.
Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Saquon Barkley.
And by the way, if
So-
you want to make the case that like Darius Slayton should be part of that stat because he came on late, it still applies. Like no Saquon Barkley, Evan Engram, Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate.
Yeah.
Like that's their core right there.
The other thing is that, again, just talking about the NFL, we always talk about this, the biggest leap a player makes from year 1 to year 2. And there's a difference for a quarterback especially. Last year, Daniel Jones comes in, and people are booing the selection. They don't understand why he went where he went in the draft, and they feel like they used way too high a pick. You've got Eli Manning. You've got this living legend there in New York. The front office is under fire, right? And so it's awful. Now, second year, Daniel Jones comes in, and this is his team. He knows he is coming in knowing he's the guy. He's going to get all the first-team reps to the extent they even have practices, right? But he's going to get all the first-team reps. They are designing the offense. New offense coordinator Jason Garrett, I am sure, has been working with Daniel Jones. What do you like? What don't you like? We're going to design this. You're not coming in and taking over Eli's offense. We're going to design this offense around Daniel Jones. And so, yeah, give me some Danny Dimes because, again, 3 straight years, the Giants have been top 10 in pass percentage. Kansas City and Tampa Bay, the other 2, over the last 3 years. The only teams that have been top 10 in pass percentage 3 straight years. Chiefs, Buccaneers, and the Giants, and I expect them once again, even under a new offensive coordinator, because I think their defense is going to be awful.
I am so going to miss Jameis Winston playing in that Buccaneers offense just for fantasy football purposes. So
Are
Matthew,
you with me on Daniel Jones?
oh yeah, I love Daniel Jones this year. I mean, I don't have him quite. I don't think I might be a couple slots behind you. I've got him at 14. You've got him at 12. But I to
Secret
the
Squirrel
point
has
that
him at 11.
Daniel is drinking the.
Secret Squirrel.
You're all in. Secret Squirrel.
Is also
Danny
drinking
Dimes got the
Kool-Aid.
secret
You know,
sauce.
one of the
Sport.
things, he never had Darius Slayton, Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Evan Engram, and Saquon Barkley all at the same time. I don't know if you guys knew that.
That stat comes courtesy of the Elias Sports Bureau. Is that correct?
Yes.
Where'd you find that
accurate.
one out? Is that where you heard it?
JJ Zachariason sent that one out.
Oh, nice. Second call out for JJ since we started the show
Yeah,
a week ago. Good job.
A lot of pub.
That's right. So, Matthew, when we talk about a team having 3 fantasy relevant wide receivers, sometimes it's like an offense that's so good. They're just overwhelming with talent, whether it's the Los Angeles Rams last year, right? Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and Brandon Cooks all going into the season as potential top 20 options. Your little Cooper Kupp. So the Giants are a little bit different. They have 3 players who do have the ability to be fantasy relevant, but I'm not sure that it's a guarantee that even 2 of them will be considerations for weekly starters in a standard size league. So let's look through the 3 top wide receivers in New York and also their ADP, and which of these players represents the best value for you. Sterling Shepard, who is going, in terms of wide receivers, 40th after Jamison Crowder. Golden Tate, who is going 46th, ahead of just ahead of Mecole Hardman. Or Darius Slayton, who right now is going wide receiver 48, just ahead of John Smokey Brown of the Bills. So you've got 3 wide receivers, all within the 40s for wide receiver ADP. They're being drafted as basically wide receiver 5s.
Right.
Which one of these players represents the best value?
I can make a case for all of them.
Interesting. Really?
You want me to make a case for all of them, then I'll pick? Let me make a quick case for all of them.
How about I'll pick after you?
and then I'll tell you who my pick is.
Okay.
So the argument for Sterling Shepard is, here's a guy that last year, even in a lost year for that offense, finished as wide receiver 24. Health was a concern there, but when he was out there, guy had almost 9 targets a game, right? He's had at least 6 targets in almost 78% of his career games. And so, again, like, guy who's a wide receiver 24 is going as wide receiver 40 on an offense that we expect to be better. And I think just skill-wise, I think he's the best wide receiver on that team.
Okay.
Right now. Golden Tate. Daniel Jones seemed to love Golden Tate last year. His target share when he played in the 9 games that Golden Tate played where Daniel Jones started, 76 targets. That's a 22.6% target share. That's in the DJ Moore, Tyler Lockett Zach Ertz range. Like, it's a significant target share. And the Darius Slayton, like, as a rookie last year, just exploded on the scene. And he may be eventually the most talented guy of this group. My personal pick is Sterling Shepard. I think he is the veteran. He has the most both upside and veteran floor. So I like both guys there. Golden Tate has never been a touchdown scorer. He just never has been. He's the guy that he had 6 red zone receptions last year. 6.
Right.
I mean, so to me, I think and Slayton's such a big play guy. Can he be consistent, especially if you have, and this is a big if, but if you have health with Tate, Shepard, and Engram, is Slayton going to get enough snaps to be a consistent fantasy force? So I think they're all worthy flyers, but I have Shepard the highest, and my answer to your question is Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, the answer is Sterling Shepard. I mean, it is Sterling Shepard. And if you look at our rankings and where they are, he is quite a bit ahead in our rankings to where his ADP is right now, where the other 2 players are basically where we have them ranked. And love Darius Slayton. He was awesome last year. He was incredibly explosive. But Darius Slayton's volume in so many games last year, I think he had 8 games last year with like 3 or fewer catches. You just can't rely upon that player every single week. I expect him to be better this year, but I think it's a clear Sterling Shepard best value amongst the Giants wide receivers. All right, we're going to bring Stephania Bell back in. A lot of good suggestions, by the way, over the weekend about what to name Stephania's manor. The Bell Tower seems to be one of the prevailing favorites, but
We have a list here. Where's my
We'll get to that when we get to our social questions. We'll get to it.
Let's bring Stephania back
But
in
I feel
here.
like we should do it now because we should get her reaction.
All right.
And yeah, okay. Let's
gonna do
bring
it.
on Stephania Bell. Where's Starfania Bell? Let's go to Coney Island.
Oh, that's really good.
Right.
That is from Mark
not
Schnebley.
field.
What about hey Stephania? What about the Bell Agio? That's from Ross
I
Trevino.
saw that.
Okay.
The Cone Dome.
I'm okay.
No, the no on the Cone Dome.
Okay.
That's from Kyle Lacey. And then the Eric Mitchell said Chateau de Cone, which I also like.
Okay, I know. I saw that you liked that last night.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get Cone out of the equation, but I actually think that's really funny.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, I was a French literature major. I spent a lot of time in France, so I love France. I love wine. And he was implying, it was like a name that would go with wine, and it's French. And he actually got the spelling wrong, because it should be, there's no apostrophe. D''C. It would be Chateau de Cone, but
Of course,
Brady
Stephania
Stephania correcting the spelling on Twitter.
That's the issue with the
There you
nickname,
go.
right?
Right.
Yeah, the apostrophe.
That's why it's funny. I'm pointing out why it's funny.
All right,
Why we
hey,
should keep-
Starfania. All right, I
I'm
mean,
in
Coney
favor.
Island's pretty good. The Bell Agio. Should we put this to a Twitter poll? See what people
Ooh,
like?
I like that.
There's Kyle. Why don't we throw those 4 names up on Twitter at Fantasy Focus?
There's a couple more too. Bel Air.
The Bel Air.
Bel Air,
not bad. Yeah,
Bel Air, not bad.
Good. Yep.
I kind of like that one too.
Yeah, Bel Air's not too
'Cause
bad.
I'm
I like
I
work from Cone too.
like the fresh.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
That's
Work
really
from
good. Work from Cone.
What?
That's amazing.
Work from Cone.
What is it?
Work from Cone.
Cone.
No.
No. What?
No.
Stephania is
That's
not
not-
in on the
no.
Cone theme. I don't know why she's being
Which
such a.
is all the more
she's
reason.
sour
it's gonna be a
grapes.
Cone.
Yeah, it's
gonna be a
definitely going to be a
Cone.
Cone.
It's gonna- It totally is. I will just say this. I feel like one of the things I like about Chateau de Cone is, again, or the Bel Agio, is that
funny.
it lets people understand just what a palatial estate
Yes.
Stephania has.
Yes.
Starfania has.
Sprawling.
Sprawling. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So wrong.
Okay.
Right.
The Bell Tower seems
Acres
pretty
upon
popular on my
acres.
feed.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, well, throw them, Thirsty Kyle, throw this up on a poll on at Fantasy Focus.
And let's give it at least 24 hours to really marinate, because I feel like this is an important decision, and we can't let it be one of those like 15-minute
100%. We will
rapid
reveal
fire
the results
polls.
tomorrow. We will reveal the results tomorrow. So if you're listening to this, you're not watching it live. If you're listening to this, you can go to @FantasyFocus on Twitter and vote in this poll.
So,
a very
Stephania,
important poll. Every vote counts.
Probably like not quite as important as figuring out what the name of your home is going to be.
Yes.
But can I ask you about Evan Engram? And given his injury
Please.
history, how are you approaching drafting him this year? And just how is he doing health-wise right now?
Well, the good news is the Giants did not put him on the PUP list. He's coming off Liz Frank surgery, and if you recall, when he was injured last year, initially it was like, maybe this isn't as severe a sprain as you could potentially have, but ultimately it did not improve with time. And as these injuries are very nuanced, sometimes it takes a while of trying to recover, finding out that you can't, and then ultimately you have to have a procedure done. Engram was quick to note that it wasn't as bad as it could have been, which is great news for him, but it's still a lengthy recovery process. This is one of those players, guys, where I really would prefer to see them during training camp or in preseason action before I came back with a hard commitment of, I think this guy is going to be 100% when the season opens, or it's probably going to take him a few weeks to get there. Given the circumstances we have and how we have to evaluate things, I'm feeling like it could take him a little bit to get there. We need to see him be a full participant in practice. We need to at least hear about that. And I want to know that he's got the speed back. And even though he wasn't known for speed, the speed to play his position, the confidence in the foot to move the weight that he needs to. If you think about Hollywood Brown, different player, much more built on speed, but just think about what he complained about after last season. Soreness in the foot, had a procedure subsequent to the season, took him a while to get up to that top speed that he has. This is one of those where sometimes the player needs to break in that foot to the demands of the game before you feel like they're 100%. You factor that in with the injuries he's had in prior seasons, and he's definitely a riskier tight end. If you choose to draft him for the upside, I highly recommend insurance. A second player who you can immediately plug in if you feel like Engram's not quite up to the level of where you had to draft him.
Stephania, as always, the highlight of our show. Thank you for everything. We'll talk to you tomorrow with many more questions about all kinds of players and on the Bellagio.
Or the Chateau de Cone. Or Coney Island.
I still like Coney Island. Thank you, Stephania.
Yeah, continue to cone from home.
Thanks,
Work
guys.
from cone.
Oh, cone from home. That's even better.
Home. I like that. Well done there. All right, Matthew. So Stephania, at the end of her analysis on Evan Engram, said something that was interesting to me. That if you were to draft Evan Engram, she would also draft a second tight end to offset the risk. Do you agree with that? Okay.
Yes, 1,000% agree with that.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I mean, Evan Engram, the talent is obvious. Health has always been the question for Evan Engram, who may have missed more games at the tight end position of starters since he came into the league than anyone else. My question to you, Field Yates, is who's that second tight end? Are you drafting a second tight end just like, whatever, Ian Thomas, Jonnu Smith, Blake Jarwin, one of those guys? Or are you drafting Caden Smith? Caden Smith, who was
somebody else.
So Caden Smith, just hear me out here for a second. Caden Smith last year showed some flashes filling in for Evan Engram. Now, again, it's hard to know because different offense coordinator last year, and they had so many guys in and out of the lineup. But this is a guy who, 8 for 70 week 13 against Green Bay, right? I mean, he had, 6 for 35, but 2 touchdowns against Washington in week 16. 8 for 98 in week 17 against the Eagles. Like, Caden Smith has shown flashes here, and there are rumors out there, Field, that at some point, if Evan Ingram's healthy, that he could be traded this during the season at some point, and that the Giants could try to, because Evan Ingram's coming up to the point where they would have to, like,
they picked up his fifth-year option,
right?
Already. I think he's more of a foundational piece than a trade piece. But I don't know that for a fact. But I actually might.
But just that's what you think. But it doesn't matter what you think. It matters what Dave Gettleman thinks.
That's a good point.
And Dave doesn't always go with the grain. That's conventional thought.
Which is a good trait in a lot of cases for a GM. However, some of his moves have not necessarily panned out. But I think I get where the conversation is on Evan Engram, and I'm actually okay with drafting a second tight end in this case with risk. I would personally just go target a player that I think has Caden Smith, with all due respect, interesting young player. He also landed on the Giants because he got cut in the middle of the season, right? So by a team that drafted him that year. So I don't think that he's quite of the ilk of a Jonnu Smith or Gerald Everett or one of those. Maybe not Gerald Everett because he's not a starting player, but still, there are other tight ends that I would target elsewhere. But so you have
who are some of your favorites? I think we've talked about some of mine. Some of your favorites.
I would need to pull up all my ranks, all my tight ends right now off the cuff.
I'm a big fan of Travis Kelce.
Well, like TJ Hawkinson, you could certainly have there, right? Like that'd be a player that
Hawkinson,
comfortable.
I think
Jonnu Smith. Yeah, there are tons of guys like that.
Jack Doyle isn't easily.
Jack Doyle's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there are enough players
there.
There are enough tight ends that I would go elsewhere personally. But here's where I think the conversation about Engram actually is sort of compelling, is that so after those early 3 tight ends that you have established, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and you have Mark Andrews third, I think it sort of gets interesting, maybe even after the first 2, is like at what point do you start dipping into that next wave of tight ends? Let's say it's Mark Andrews and Zach Ertz, and then maybe someone like an Evan Engram, because I have him 5th in my tight end rankings. You have him 6th. Right now his ADP overall, not amongst tight ends, is in the 8th round. So is that appropriate value for Evan Engram? Because at some point, Matthew, we do have the conversation about which tight ends in the NFL could legitimately be the best pass catcher on their roster. And the list is pretty short, but Evan Ingram's on that list.
There, 100%. There is no question about Evan Ingram's talent. It's just merely about the health. And I don't mind an 8th round ADP. That's perfectly fine. Like, to get a guy with that kind of upside there is phenomenal. I have said this year that I probably won't have a lot of Evan Engram this year, though, even though I have him 6th, right, which is higher than consensus and higher than a lot of people. Just because my general draft philosophy this year is I want to be one of the first or one of the last to grab a tight end. That I want one of those elite guys at the top, or to your point that we've talked about the fact that, right, there's, again, Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, Gesicki, Rob Gronkowski, right? Who I like this year.
Gronk's actually going ahead of Evan Engram, believe it or not.
Gronk's going ahead?
Yeah.
Tight end 5?
I know.
Goodness, okay, that's surprising.
No, Gronk's going to be way overdrafted this year. There's no doubt.
Yeah, but whatever.
By name.
By name, fair enough. But I'm just saying, like, whatever. And Jonnu Smith and Ian Thomas and Blake Jarwin, and there's just like a lot of interesting guys that, that are going to see a significant increase in role this year that we think are talented young players. So there's a lot of guys there. I'm with you. So it's a sort of so I probably won't be one of the guys that has a lot of Evan Engram because of just how I'm approaching drafts. Right. By the way, as long as I'm talking about how I approach drafts, I can give a quick shout out to my draft day manifesto.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or my draft day manifesto. So it was released this weekend.
Yep.
I don't know why, but anyway, whatever. So but it's out there now. It's out there now. So you may have missed it because people are, out doing stuff during the weekend, but I spent a lot of time on it. I think I did a really good job on it. I'm really happy with it. Pretty sure it's the last one I'm ever going to write. Okay. So the Draft Day Manifesto, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Drafters. It's available now on ESPN.com and in the ESPN Fantasy app. So please check it out. I think you will enjoy it.
I look forward to
Draft
reading
Day Manifesto
very much. Okay, interesting. So Evan Engram, a player that we're sort of scatterbrained there in terms of where we value him, but a guy whose ceiling is pretty high.
Very high.
Very high.
Yeah. No, listen, again, I have him at 6, you have him at 5. So we both have him higher than consensus. We're all saying if you're drafting a tight end there, and I have no problem with 8th round. I'm just telling you how I'm approaching drafts. But there will certainly be drafts where it comes to a point where I'm like, I'm just taking Evan Engram here.
Yeah. You know what?
Yes, sir.
Live sports are finally back.
Hey, now.
Just like the rest of us. And now that we're all getting back on the road again, the stops we make seem more special than before. Like stopping to watch the game at our friend's place, or stopping at our favorite spot to cheer at every amazing shot, score, and win. And between those stops, there's Shell. Stop in to fill up with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. It's their best fuel ever, and it'll help keep your engine running like new. Stop in to save with the Fuel Rewards program. Just download the app or go to fuelrewards.com to join, and you'll never pay full price for gas again. And finally, stop in to get snacks and essentials that can save you even more at the pump. That's just a few of the ways Shell helps make you the most. Shell helps you make the most of the stop you need to make. See full terms and conditions at fuelrewards.com. And engines that continuously use Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline.
Listen, all you football fans out there living in apartments in big cities. We're sympathizing with all of you out there who want every live game every Sunday afternoon, but who can't get DirecTV where you live. This is great news, Field, especially especially, by the way, when you think about this year with COVID-19, maybe you're not comfortable going down to your local bar. Maybe you don't want to do that to watch all the games on Sunday. Well, get this. You can now stream 2020 NFL Sunday Ticket on your favorite devices. No satellite required, and you get every live out-of-market game every Sunday afternoon. So here's what you do. You're going to go online to NFLSundayTicket.tv now to see if you're eligible. Why watch only one Sunday out-of-market game when you can watch them all? Catch every game with NFLSundayTicket.tv. And here's what you're going to do. Use the promo code ESPN2020. You do that at checkout, and you're going to save 15%. That's a pretty good deal. Once again, promo code ESPN2020 saves you 15% at NFLSundayTicket.tv. Don't miss any of the action. Head to NFLSundayTicket.tv today. Secret Squirrel, can you talk to the salespeople here and try to hook me up with this? Because this is awesome.
I
want one of these.
Matthew, I can do the best that I can, but at a minimum, the best is ESPN 2020, which is 15% off.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd have to pay for it myself. I know.
Yes.
But I'm just, I'm trying to
I'll see if I can.
I'm trying to move.
Drive some traffic.
Look some things
Trying to
up.
drive a little. Anyway, I think that's a.
Sounds
We
like an
love all of our
excellent deal.
sponsors, but I'm not being paid to say this. I'm just saying NFL Sunday Ticket is terrific, and
That sounds sweet.
and being able to get it without the satellite is that's what you call one of them good deals.
Alrighty.
One of them
well
good
said
deals.
by you. Daniel, give us a couple social questions before we hit some trivia.
Yeah, we got a couple of social questions here. This one comes from Twerka, wants to know, are you less likely to draft your starting running backs backup this year, fearing COVID-19 within a single locker room? So basically, if you're looking at
Yeah, that
drafting
makes
a
it- I
backup,
understand
Tony
it, yes.
Pollard, Zeke.
Good question.
Um,
For me, it's no.
yeah, same.
I'm not less likely. I'm actually probably more likely. And I understand the concerns, obviously, with COVID and the same. And I know this. So we talked about this the other day. Another shout out to JJ. JJ's point was on Twitter was that, hey, if you have Ezekiel Elliott, instead of drafting Tony Pollard as insurance, why not draft Alexander Madison? So in essence, you have a shot at Minnesota's backfield and you have Dallas's backfield, as opposed to my take is that I would rather do both. I would rather do Tony Pollard so that I at least guarantee the production of Dallas's backfield, because I've made a big investment in that, and I expect Dallas's backfield to be very fantasy friendly and relevant, but also take an upside flyer on Alexander Madison. Sure. And I'm willing to sacrifice positions like no quarterback depth, no wide, and not a lot of wide receiver depth, because I believe I'll be able to go out and find that on the waiver wire should I need to during the season.
Right. I get what you're saying. Yes. So, and I probably, it seems like, and again, we are learning on the fly with everything with COVID. It seems like teams are doing an excellent job from insulating players from themselves. I think I saw that the Bengals are having each of their quarterbacks meet in a different room. So it seems like maybe some of that fear is mitigated just a little bit by the measures teams are taking. So I'm with you. Back to, I'm taking the backup to my own running back. Daniel, what you got?
All right, we're going to do the Geico trivia question.
Alrighty.
Kyle, going to send it on over to you.
We were talking a lot about Saquon Barkley earlier in this podcast. He's already got 2 seasons under his belt with 1,000 rushing yards and 50 catches. I want you to name for me the 2 active players that had 2 such seasons in their first 3 NFL seasons.
Okay, so they need to have had at least 1,000 rushing yards.
Yep.
And 50 catches.
And 2 of their first 3 NFL seasons.
2 of their first 3 NFL seasons. Okay.
And Matthew won week 1 trivia with 2 correct responses. No pressure.
Alrighty. Yes, he did.
So 1,000 rushing yards and 50 receptions.
catches in 2 of your first 3 NFL seasons. Players have to be on a current active NFL roster.
I think I'm wrong on this. I don't think I have. I think I have one. I don't think I have the other one.
I would agree.
Okay.
I can't see your board from here, but I'm guessing 1 out of 2 sounds about right.
Okay. Matthew Berry, you have the first reveal. Who do you got?
I have CMC and Joe Mixon. I thought about Kamara, but I don't think Kamara got 1,000 rushing yards.
Correct. You have 1 out of 2.
CMC? Well, that was dumb by me to get to not put CMC on there. I don't know why I was thinking that.
I bet you got the other one, though.
Okay, I have got Ezekiel Elliott and Todd Gurley.
Wow, that's an
TG3.
Over for Field Yates, 1 for Matthew Berry. So I guess that's a win.
How about
for
Daniel?
Matthew Berry.
How about Daniel?
Frank Gore.
I've got LaShawn McCoy and David Johnson. I just took a guess.
Oh, not
Didn't
bad.
show up
But
on
David
camera,
Johnson got
but-
hurt. So,
But Frank Gore.
Frank Gore. It was a
I
throwback
actually
answer.
thought about putting him on there. That was because I was like, who's the oldest running back? But
Yeah.
1,050 for Frank Gore. That
Years
guy
2 and 3
is
for him,
a
which was
legend.
100 years ago.
I mean, listen, I'm bad at trivia. I'll be the first to admit it, but I sort of feel like in that particular question, CMC was a little bit of a bingo free square.
I know that was bad by me. I am.
That felt too, because the
Kyle's got
problem
a-
is you think too deeply when you have these questions, so the obvious one doesn't.
think
I don't have a problem with
I
thinking too
understand. You're
deeply.
surface level.
I'm very surface level.
All right,
I'm very-
great job by Kyle. And remember, we are back tomorrow.
Oh, but hold first,
On.
Field Yates. We have a crappy promo from Matthew Berry.
All righty.
I don't have a sounder for it.
No,
Crappy
that's quite all right. But
promo.
listen, if you want to watch the fantasy show on ESPN Plus or read any of Mike Clay's stuff, you can do it through a subscription to rotopass.com, which has many great sites for one low price, a bunch of fantastic sites that give you like customized ranks and draft software and everything you need to know. Promo code August gets you 10% off, or promo code 06010. Either promo code gets 10% off. 06010 is probably easier to remember.
Probably.
At rotopass.com. Promo code
right.
06010.
As we say goodbye, we do have Matthew show violations 17 with an asterisk and counting. We're back on Tuesday. Talk to you tomorrow.
Peace out.